In this week's episode, I'm talking to Andre Bradshaw from the USA about how he got into sourcing, why he decided to become a developer, and what he will be talking about at SourceCon in Atlanta. Welcome to episode 29 of the Sourcing Challenge Show. I'm your host, Mark Lundgren. I started off by asking Andre how he got into sourcing.
I did recruiting on the agency side for, probably 8 or so years, and then went into corporate recruiting. And it was primarily IT, although on corporate side, it was a bit of everything. The last year I was doing recruiting, it was actually executive search. But actually, I attribute that to what led me to actually being able to develop for a living. If you recall, I guess it was back in beginning of 2017, end of 2016, LinkedIn had changed their search interface and removed a lot of the features. For a brief moment, they added it back, but it kind of prompted me to put together some logic that I had built in Excel that kind of made my executive search work a little bit automated. So we get all these applicants and we have all this information in Taleo, and I would just dump it all into a table and then create logic that would build search links based off the information that was available. And I'm sure you've seen, you can just look in the URL and LinkedIn, and it's all first name equals last name equals. It's all a JSON-P request essentially.
Yeah.
And anyway, long story short, I was banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how to program it, and the only thing I knew at the time, which was Ruby on Rails. And I hit up a buddy of mine that's a web developer and asked for his help, and he gave me some scripts, and I just have been hacking away at it since then.
Cool.
And I guess it was about this time last year, I got a job where I could actually get paid to develop, which was cool, and been doing that for about a year, and I'm moving on to my next opportunity now.
And helping the rest of us out with your videos and just, this is how to actually do this effectively.
Yeah, I found it really helpful to have some practical code when I was just starting off that was relevant to the things that I needed. And because I knew what it was doing, I could reverse engineer what every little, string was doing. I had no idea at the time, and plugging in code and seeing if it would throw an error. No, okay, let me try this. No, that's an error. All right, let me try this. But I'd like to save others a little bit of time so that they're not just doing the trial and error thing all night long. They can just maybe look at my videos and get an idea of how to approach it from someone that does the same thing as them.
So do you primarily kind of develop your own tools and your own kind of, or do you, did you use other tools, or was that kind of like some of the emphasis that the tools you had didn't really work anymore?
Yeah, so I never was a big tool user. I like to do things the hard way, probably. I use some of them. Like, I still have Contact Out that I use to grab email addresses. The stuff that's high impact and low resource usage, I'll typically have installed. But outside of that, I like to figure it out for myself.
Where did you go to in terms of sourcing and kind of learning from that? Where did you go to when you started out, especially kind of going from agency to corporate? Like, how did you learn other than just trial and error?
There's a lot of trial and error, but heavy research. Like, that's what I do for fun. I mean, I like just kind of crawling the web and seeing what's out there. And again, learning how to code was advantageous because I could just essentially automate what we do as recruiters, right? Just automate going through every link and seeing what's there. I can write a script to do that, and then I can just go review it later. So the traditional stuff, I mean, obviously we all still use LinkedIn, even though we'd like to think that it's not a good source. It is.
It's a good anchor because you have everybody kind of working on that. So even if you find people somewhere else, just having that as an anchor and using that as kind of spreading out to find what's the rest of the footprint look like. Yeah.
I use LinkedIn's unique identifiers as my unique identifiers when I'm trying to align people with similar names. Outside of that, I mean, when I was first starting out, it was heavy, traditional job boards. I recruited a lot of traditional engineering roles, like electrical, mechanical engineers. So I used CE Weekly, if you remember that.
Yeah.
I think it started off as a paper. And I'm not that far removed from printing off resumes, frankly. Like for several years, I was a recruiter. I had stacks and files, and I am organized with my resume, right? So I had these filing cabinets of all these different categories. It was nuts.
We have a database. That's why we're the best. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what it used to be all about. Europe, that's less so now because that's the interesting piece. It just means that the rest of us have more work because we have to keep finding the same people over and over again.
Yeah, I probably should do a little research on that to see how to, I don't want to say skirt the law, but know how to be compliant with it while also making my job easier. I mean, that's why what you do is more and more important for us as well, because it's very much that thing. It's like, even if I found them before, having the process to be able to find them again the same way, that's compliant. Storing them, if you haven't been in contact or they haven't accepted that you're trying to get in contact with them, that's the one that gets gray zone. So, but knowing how you found them in the first place and how you got to actually get contact information or reach out, that's the thing that, there's no law against that. So the tools, like that kind of processes, becomes more important than the actual output of it. Yeah, and really we should all be doing that anyway, right? We should really be taking notes on where we find people, the best resources. I have a lot of note-taking tools that I've built since the beginning of the year when I found a quick and easy way to do it. I think I put a video up on it actually where you just click a button and it sends it off to a spreadsheet, and then I can query it later.
And you're speaking in Atlanta. Tell me a bit about what you're going to be speaking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go over a few of the tools that I use on a daily basis. One of them, or really depending on the time, I think that and how well I can believe people can absorb the information. There's two areas I want to go down. One is kind of web scraping using Google Apps Scripts as a web server, and teaching people how, basically giving them block code that they can kind of tweak a little bit for their own usage, showing how that works, explaining how regular expressions work and how the logic is essentially the same as Boolean operators or Boolean logic. So if you know the ands and ors and nots, it's more complex, but it's the same premise, right? So if you're a good sourcer and you know how to search, you can program. You may not be a great programmer, right? But I'm going to give you the hammer and everything will look like a nail and you'll get there. And then there's another tool that, what I was just mentioning about kind of one-click send to a sheet. So I have this, you basically will create a little web form in JavaScript. So we'll go through, what each line of that code means briefly, but really it's just going to be heavily commented so people can edit it to their own needs. But essentially the idea is, if I'm looking at a profile, right, be it on LinkedIn or wherever, GitHub, I want to be able to save that somewhere without having to copy and paste to a spreadsheet or an ATS or what have you. So you can utilize an HTTPS request, a JSONP request over Google Apps Scripts to send that information through their web server. There is a character limit, so you can't get too crazy, but it's great for when you're just trying to churn through and just put some information together so that, the next day you can burn through a bunch of phone calls.
What's something exciting that you're working on now?
So I actually was working on this last night, and it was really just a proof of concept, and I'm not sure I want to use it, but I figured out a way to automate text engagement. So sending people text messages for free without having to pay anybody for a service. It's very early stage. I just ran a couple tests and was like, oh, wow, this actually works. Cool. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure how much I'll really use it because I'm kind of against automated communications, but it might be helpful in the future.
It's the whole thing of kind of looking at, it's like, if you're only sending emails, anything is going to be better than that. But if you're trying to if you have a cadence where you use different channels, then text message could definitely be one way for a certain type of people, like developers, not necessarily. But at the end of the day, we know that text message is going to get read. Whereas email, not necessarily so. We still get most people get a lot less text than they get emails.
Yeah, I think the important part with any kind of automation like that is making sure that you keep your database really tight. And so that if you are sending out a blast, it's to 10 people, right?
Yeah.
You might have a list of 2,000, 20,000 people, but your search is so good. You've taken such care and taking notes and adding tags that you put all those parameters in and you click your butt, and it saves you the time of having to go through that and make those individual outreaches. But it's very important that you're not just spamming the world, because you're going to get blocked. I think it's a little bit abusive to send messages like that. So that's really what I'm working on at the moment. Like the prototype works, but now I need to figure out, all right, what's the best method really here for ensuring that it only goes out to people that are relevant to what I'm working on.
Yeah, and still scaling it and making it stable. What's one of the things that what you feel like you failed, but that's kind of been a thing that you learned the most from in your career or in what you do?
I can tell you that just that one little thing I was talking about in terms of sending information from one place to another took me months to figure out.
Oh my God.
And it's so simple, but I spent so many months. I knew it was possible. It's just, there's not really good information out there. And maybe I'm not good at searching. I don't know. But there's really just not a lot of information out there around, building stuff that could be turned into a product, right? So if you build something cool, you're not sharing it with everyone, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to make some money off this. And that's kind of
everything. Yeah,
that's, I don't know. One day I'll probably need to, so that I can make money. But as it stands now, I like to share everything that I build so that other people can learn from it as well, so that they don't spend 6 months banging their head against the wall on something that is, 3 lines of code.
If people want to stay in touch with you and follow your antics and whatever new you're working with, how can they best do that?
If you want an immediate response, I guess Facebook Messenger I'm pretty good at responding to, and I definitely welcome anyone to reach out to me if they're stuck on a problem. Maybe not if you just are wanting me to build something for you. I mean, maybe if it's interesting, I might do it, but certainly if you're stuck on something, you're getting these errors, or you just don't know how to even get started, I want to help people. I really do. So I'm happy to help people there. If you're looking for some code, check out my GitHub. It's just, GitHub/Andre Bradshaw. I think just about everything is that, or A Bradshaw. So.
Well, thank you very much, Andre. I look forward to seeing you, in a few weeks in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you then.